everybody. I hope the wet hair doesn't put you off or anything. Just took a shower a little while ago. And I'm sitting outside on my porch, which is why you may hear birds or outside noises or cars. So I wanted to make a YouTube channel. I've wanted to do this for a while, but especially recently with a lot of things I've had going on in my life. I feel like it's a really good place to like vent in a way, put your thoughts and feelings into videos that other people might find useful. Like I know and I am in a bad place, like I have been recently. I love to go on YouTube and look at others who maybe are experiencing the same thing as me, and see how they've gotten through it, and I think it's a really valuable resource to find a community like that. So I just wanted to talk about my health journey that I've had the past couple of years. Oh, sorry if like the sun is like half on my face, half not. It's a weird time of day, but I figured like more dark is better. I don't know. Just don't mind it. Anyway, so my journey started with my health problems in the spring of 2017. So I was a sophomore in college. I graduated this past spring, so I'm out of college now. And I was studying abroad. I was studying abroad in Nottingham, England, which is like the central part of England. And I was there for about 2 or 3 weeks, and it was great. I had made a group of friends. This is annoying me. It's starting to... Okay, here we go. I'll move it slightly. Okay. So, I had started to make a great group of friends. I liked my classes. I was just starting a new major, so it was all like very new in my life. And about 3 weeks in, I got really, really sick. And to this day, I don't know what it was. It could have been viral, it could have been bacterial, I'm not sure. But all I know is that I got really, really sick. Like, probably the sickest I've been since I was little. So really not good. It was like, I had a fever, I had chills, like full body, like chills and like aches. And I don't usually get that with like regular colds. It was like full on body chills where I'd be under like 10 blankets to feel comfortable. A lot of throwing up, which also hasn't happened since like I was little, like being like throwing up from an illness. So yeah, I got very, very sick. And I went to the doctor in England, like a walk-in clinic, and they also didn't know what was wrong with me. And they were like, it could be viral, it could be bacterial, but either way, we'll give you some penicillin just in case. So I said, okay, that sounds fair. So the same day, I came back to my dorm that I was staying in at the University of Nottingham with my medicine. And I was also dorming alone. Like, the whole building I was in, it was only singles. There was no, like, doubles. And I think that's also just, like, more common in the UK, in general at universities, to have single rooms and not, like, having roommates. So I was in my own room, which in a way was nice, since I was so sick and, like, looked gross. So I went back to my room and took my medicine, and I was just trying to ride out my fever or whatever was going on. And suddenly I saw like a million, like a ton of like colored spots in my vision, like on all types of colors too. Like blue, green, purple, red, orange, yellow, whatever. I saw so many. And it's hard to remember now, like 3 years later, but I believe they were like circles all over my field of vision in my room. And I was like freaking out because obviously it's not something you usually see or usually have during a fever. Maybe some people have visual disturbances during a fever, but I usually don't. So it was a new thing for me. So, yeah, it like started to slowly go away over the course of like a few minutes. And I was like, okay, it's going away, it's going away. But I was left with this huge blob in the middle that wouldn't go away. And it was, like, shiny. It was like a big shiny spot. And it was also, like, waving. So imagine, like, and it was, like, your central vision. So, like, it was, like, the very center of your vision in both eyes. And it was a big shiny blob that was also waving. Oh, and I could see it when I closed my eyes, too. So I was like, what the heck, this is so weird. And I waited another little while, and that still didn't go away. So at that point, I WhatsApp texted my parents because I, don't have service in another country, and I live in New York, so I can only WhatsApp them and not text them. So I messaged them, and I said, this is so weird, like, this is, like, they knew I was sick, but I told them what had been going on with my vision. And I was like, what do I do? This is so weird. Like, I could still see fine. Like, I could, walk around and, like, call them and, like, see what was in front of me and where I was and stuff. But I was like, this huge shiny blob isn't going away. And they were like, okay, we'll go to the doctor in, like, the morning. And I was like, okay. So I waited till the morning. And they don't really have walk-in clinics, unless it's like a specialist or like a private doctor, because England has the NHS, the National Health Service, so everything is like socialized medicine. So the only way I could see a doctor like soon was going to the ER. And luckily, there was a hospital that was like across the street from the university. So I was able to go to the ER. I told them what had happened, and they were like, oh, it's probably just a result of the sickness you're having. You had a high fever, and your body just like attacked your eyes. But it should go away. Like, it should settle as your illness goes away. And I was like, okay. And then over the next 2 weeks, I'll just sum it up because those 2 weeks were awful, to put it shortly. And it didn't go away. And my parents, after 2 weeks, called me and they were like, okay, so we could either go to England and meet you and like try to find a good eye doctor like in England with you, or you can come home and like see your doctors that you have at home that you've known your whole life, and will just be easier. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go home. I'm not gonna deal with like the healthcare system over there. It was just not something I was used to. So I decided to go home. And I thought that it might be something that could be easily fixed, maybe with a certain steroid or antibiotic or something. I'm not sure. So I went home with the hopes of being able to fly back to England a week later. So I thought I'd only be home a week. So I went home. I saw my eye doctor. Basically, she said, there's nothing wrong with your eyes. It looks, they look perfect. She did a whole exam in both of them. She said they both look perfect. Maybe it's stress and you need to see a psychiatrist. And I can't tell you how many times over the years I've gotten a response like that from doctors. I've had such a rough time with doctors like believing me, and that's a whole other thing I'm going to get into. But anyway, she said maybe you should see a psychiatrist or try yoga or something. And I was like, oh my god, like I know what I'm seeing. You know, I'm not crazy. I'm, you know, like a patch of my vision is missing. I'm not, like, just imagining it. So my parents believed me, luckily. And, so we went on to see, over the spring of 2017, like, at least, like, 10 doctors, probably. And that includes ophthalmologists, which are eye doctors, neurologists, which are brain doctors, neuro-ophthalmologists, which are both, a combination of both, psychiatrist, general doctor, GP, until finally I was able to be referred to Columbia Eye Center in New York City. And I'm really lucky to live so close to New York City, where there's so many specialized doctors and so many, like, prestigious hospitals and medical centers, because, you know, if I lived maybe in the middle of the country or in the middle of nowhere somewhere, I wouldn't have had the answer that I got. So I went there. Sorry, I keep on getting a dry throat. I guess it's talking a lot. So I went there, and after like 6 or 7 hours of tests, I was literally there morning to afternoon, almost evening. Like, I was there all day. Stuck my head into so many globes, like them doing eye tests. You know, I don't know if you've ever done any eye tests, but it's like pushing buttons when you see certain lights, when you see certain colors, stuff like that. I did so many, like, crazy amounts. Oops, somebody's moving a garbage can down there. And they were like, and this prestiged, amazing Columbia eye doctor was finally, I was so happy this day, he was finally like, we know what's wrong with you. And I was so relieved, because even though it was something that ultimately couldn't be helped with medicine anymore, he told me, we know what's wrong with you. And he showed me the picture of my retinas, and it was only done using super specialized cameras that no other eye doctor had. So that's why I like say that I'm so lucky that I got to go to a specialist with this equipment, with this great equipment. So he showed me the pictures of my retinas, and he said, whatever illness you had attacked your eyes and left blind spots in your vision. And he said this isn't terribly uncommon. It doesn't happen a lot, but it can happen to young women, especially. Lucky me, right? So he said it should heal over time. Like, it is a self-healing issue. And I said, great. And over the course of those few months being home, it, like, had already started to heal incrementally over months, so it was very slow. Like, I would notice it was getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So I went to him in May. This whole fiasco with the eyes started in February, so it was like the whole spring. So I'd say probably soon after I saw him, my eyes reached a level where they plateaued. So they healed and healed, and then they plateaued, so they stopped healing. So to this day, 3 years later, I still see blind spots in my vision, but they are so small, and my brain has learned to tune them out that I don't really care anymore. They don't really affect me anymore. maybe when I'm like super like tired, like in the morning or at night, or super stressed, like I'll notice them more because they're shiny and wavy. So I'll notice them more if I'm like super tired or I just wake up, or yeah, something like that. But for the most part, I was like, whatever. By the way, this is makeup. I was testing on my hand, so I don't have some weird rash. For the most part, I was like, great, this is over and done with. Oh, I forgot to mention, and that's an important part of this story, is that a few weeks into being home, now some of my mom's friends have Lyme disease. I live in a very Lyme-heavy area, the Hudson Valley of New York, which is like a tick-infested, Lyme-infested area. So some of my mom's friends have Lyme, and after my mom told them that I had this, weird illness, this mystery illness, and this thing had happened to my eyes, my mom's friends were like, you should have her see a Lyme doctor because she might have Lyme. And in the back of my head, I was like, there's no way I have Lyme. Like, it happened in England, and it was like February, it was still cold. It wasn't like snowing or anything, it was probably like 30, 40 degrees. And ticks are active after 30 degrees. They're alive and thriving. But I was like, there's no way it's Lyme. Like, I didn't believe it. But anyway, my parents took me to a Lyme doctor. This was before the Columbia eye doctor. And he did a test, and the test was negative. Even though I would come to find out later on that Lyme tests are very, very faulty and not dependable, and are wrong like at least half the time. Like 50 to 60% of the time, they're negative. And it's a false negative. So anyway, after that whole fiasco, I was like, okay, whatever. I'm healthy again. I've reached a point of acceptance with my eyes, and I get to move on with my life. So the summer happens. I was a babysitter. I was healthy that whole time. The fall rolls around. The fall of 2017. Ugh. So many years in this story. The fall of 2017, and it is the fall semester of my junior year of college. So I ended up having to withdraw for a semester, so I had to make all the classes up that I missed when I was home, trying to find answers for my eyes, which was a little bit annoying, but I did it, and I caught up, and I was fine. But the fall of my junior year, I started getting panic attacks. I have never experienced panic attacks before. And I remember sitting in my room, and I would just get them for no reason. I would just start to freak out. And it's really scary. If you haven't experienced one, you're very lucky, because they're very scary. You really can't breathe, and you feel like the world is spinning around you, and you have no control, basically. So I started getting panic attacks. And I kind of assumed it might be from, I had diagnosed PTSD from my eye experience, because it was very traumatizing. But sorry, all the motorcycle and car noises. Jeez. Two just zipped by at the same time. How convenient for a video, right? But I had never experienced panic attacks before, not to this degree. It was really, really bad. So that started the fall of my junior year. All of these things kind of happened. All of my symptoms kind of popped up in increments of semesters of college, which is kind of funny, so I can remember them. I actually have notes written down where I wrote all of them down in order. Yeah. Okay, so, oh yeah, also, starting in the fall of my junior year, I started getting a lot of floaters in my vision, like a lot of little black spots that would go back, you know, move whenever your eyes move. You see them like in front of like white or like light visual fields. I got a lot of floaters. I had a lot of flashing lights in my vision, but this wasn't all the time. This was only occasionally, and this is probably what also contributed to my panic attacks that I was recently getting. I was getting a lot of like, and this wasn't like every day, but it was like every few weeks. I would have like a bunch of white flashes all over, and then it would go away, and it would last like 2 seconds. But that freaked me out because I'd never had that before. So that started in the fall of 2017, and then we go into the spring of 2018, end of my junior year. Basically, the whole semester of the spring of 2018, I had ongoing nausea for months. And I didn't know why. I was on a birth control, so I thought it might have been that. But I stopped the birth control, and I still had it. So it was very, very odd. I went to a doctor. They did a blood test to check for some things because I was super nervous. I was literally nauseous, like, every second of every day. I was nauseous. Like, I would wake up nauseous, go to my classes nauseous. It was all the time. So I went to a doctor, and they did a full blood panel, and they found nothing wrong. And they were like, oh, you probably just need to take some probiotics. It's probably, like, a gut issue. And I was like, okay. I, like, didn't really feel like that was the full answer to why I was feeling that way, but I was like, okay, sure, I'll try probiotics. And then as strangely as it had came, it went, the nausea that I was experiencing. It was literally just that spring. I don't know why, like what spurred it on. There were a few episodes where I actually did throw up. I remember I was in the middle of a test for one of my economics classes. It was health economics, I remember, which is ironic. And I was in the middle of a test, and I remember thinking, I just have to like run out of this room and go throw up because I can't do this test this nauseous for the rest of the time. And I didn't end up doing that. I ended up finishing the test, but I sped through it so I could go and throw up. Like, it was the weirdest thing. I see my brother walking down the street. So anyways, that was the end of my junior year. So the end of my junior year was fine. The nausea ended up subsiding. I was like, great. The summer of 2018, I had a great opportunity. I interned at Maine Medical Center in Portland, Maine, obviously. And I was working in the Health Information Management Department. So I was working with medical records because after my eye situation, I knew that I wanted to go into public health in some shape or form. So I got that internship, and it was great. And I started to dorm at University of Southern Maine, and then commute to work every day. And I loved it. I love Portland. Like, the Portland area is so beautiful. Scarborough, Gorham, like, I loved it. I would definitely want to like visit again or maybe live there someday. Like, I loved it. But it was one fateful day. I was at work, and I was in the bathroom, and I pulled down my pants to pee, and I saw a bullseye rash on my thigh. And it wasn't even like a indistinguishable, like, oh, like, could that be a bullseye? I'm not sure. It was a full-on bullseye, like red, white, red ring, full on. And I was like, oh crap, that's definitely Lyme. That's like, you don't even need a diagnosis for that. That's Lyme. And at this point, it had progressed because I'd had that bite for a few weeks. I'd gotten that bite like 3 or 4 weeks earlier before I even left for Maine in New York. But I thought it was a mosquito bite. So I had gotten it a while before, but it was like only like a month later when I was in Maine that it started to show like the expanding ring, red ring. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's scary. I gotta go to the doctor. So I went to a walk-in clinic in Scarborough, Maine, after work at the time. I went straight to the doctor. And they were like, we can do a blood test for Lyme if you want, but we're just going to prescribe you the 21 3-week course of doxycycline as a precautionary measure, just in case. And I was like, hi. And that was my mom. And so I took it, and I thought, great, that will be the end of it. That will cure me of my Lyme. And the first day or two of taking the doxycycline for the Lyme rash, I remember I skipped work the next 2 or 3 days because I had the worst, like, not the worst sickness of my life. The one in England was the worst sickness of my life. But I felt, like, really off. Like, I had a fever. I felt really dizzy. I just felt like crap. Like, I had a cough. Like, I just felt terrible. Which I now was probably a Herxheimer reaction. Which is what happens when you have Lyme bacteria being killed by antibiotics, and then they give off toxins, which makes you feel worse. So I had a Herx reaction for about 3 days, and then I was fine after that. Like, after 3 days, I felt good, back to myself. So after that, I started to go back to work, and I felt fine. I finished the 21 days. My mom's friend who has Lyme says, oh, you should try to get 6 to 8 weeks of doxycycline as a precautionary measure. Like, 3 weeks isn't enough. And I was like, okay, I'll try. So I went back to the doctor. There wasn't a doctor, it was like a walk-in clinic, in urgent care. So I walked back in, and luckily they just gave it to me. I was lucky in that regard. I just asked for another week, and they were like, sure. So I didn't get 6 weeks, but I got like 3.5, 4, like about a little less than a month. Probably like 27 days. I remember I also didn't take like 4 or 5 pills, because by the end of it I was like, this is probably enough. And it was, so I took like 3.5 weeks of doxycycline, and the rest of that summer I was fine. Felt good. Wasn't sick. Finished my internship. Enjoyed Maine. It was beautiful. I loved it. I had a great time. And then the fall starts. The fall of my senior year of college. I'm living in this beautiful house with 6 of my friends. It is incredible, and I am loving my classes, and just everything's going great. I got in a show, a play that my theater club had put on, so I was just doing really well all across the board. But I started to experience, like I said, these symptoms come in semesters, I swear to God. I started to experience tingling and numbness. in my legs and arms. So it was intermittent. It wasn't constant, but I remember my legs would tingle for like a while and feel numb. And I was like, and I thought back to that bullseye rash over the summer, and I was like, oh crap, can this be Lyme that came back? So I started being really anxious again. My panic attacks came back. I had OCD. Just overall, like, really, the whole fall of 2018, I was super, super anxious, and had these tingling and numbness sensations that would come and go, but it made me really nervous. But again, since I had the negative Lyme test, I was like, I can't have Lyme. Like, I took medicine for it. I saw the bullseye. I took medicine. I should be fine. I tried to convince myself that I was fine, and that it was just kind of health anxiety. And then the spring of 2019, so my last semester of college, I started to experience intense leg pain. And the thing I can compare it to, that people would probably understand, is growing pains. It felt like growing pains in my legs. But I'm 22. I was 21 at the time, but I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure growing pains stop after a certain point in your teens. I hadn't had them for a long time, like, leading up to this, but it was consistent for like a month. I had just intense leg pain. I started to use a heating pad on it like every night because my legs hurt so much. I also had a lot of depression spring of 2019, which is weird because it was my last semester of college, and I shouldn't have been depressed, but like I was, and my legs really hurt. And then after that, that's the end of my notes on my phone, so I'm gonna just go by my memory now. I decided to do this amazing program after college, kind of a gap program, called Up With People. It's an amazing organization, and they're kind of struggling financially right now. So I'll put a link in the bio of this video. It's an amazing organization. I traveled from July through, I felt healthy enough. I traveled from July through December of 2019, and it was incredible. We traveled all over the world. We did volunteer work. We did a musical show that we put on for a bunch of schools and communities, and it was just amazing. I met so many people from all over the world, and it's something that I'll never take for granted, and I loved every second of it. However, I always knew that, like, my body, after the eye issue, I always knew that my body was, I don't know, like, weaker than most, in a sense, like, where I had a weaker immune system. So I was always conscious after that to not get sick, or not get too sick, because I knew something bad could happen if I got sick, like my eye thing. So this program is incredible, but it's also kind of the perfect storm for getting sick, because it's a lot of traveling and a lot of go and moving around, and by the end of our, like, 4th or 5th month, we were in Italy, and I got sick, and it was a very bad cold. I don't think I had a fever. I might have had a fever, but it was a very bad cold, is like the best way I can describe it. Just a lot of head congestion everywhere. Like, I was super stuffy. and not feeling too good. And my Italian host mom at the time was like as helpful as she could be. She was sweet. She like gave me tea and Italian, I think the Italian equivalent of Sudafed to try to clear me up, which was sweet. Like a throat spray. Like she gave me things to try to help, and they did help a little bit. But also, it was also a really bad time to get sick because it was the day before we were traveling from Italy to Germany on a bus, a 20-hour overnight bus at that, so a really stressful bus ride. So that bus ride was horrible. I remember I felt so crappy on it. I like just kept downing the throat spray. I was trying my best because like I said, I know that when I get sick, it's dangerous and something, you know, I have a weak immune system, something could happen. So I was trying to do everything I could. I was popping ibuprofen, trying to reduce any fever, throat spray, whatever. So we got to Germany, and I felt a lot better. I met my host family that I was going to be living with for the week, and I felt a lot better. Like the first day or two of being in Germany, I was like, okay, I'm over this cold, I'm over this like sickness, I'm good to go. Which was not the case. Of course. I'm sorry. I have such brain fog. I was at one of my volunteering sites in Germany, like the first day we were there, or the second day we were there. Like we had just gotten there. And my left ear started to ring. And, I think everyone has had, like, ringing in their ears before. But this time, it did not go away. I've had it before where, it gets really loud and then goes away. Or it's there for a minute, but then it goes away. Or, after, like, a loud, like, club, like in college, I'd have ringing in my ears afterwards. But then, by the morning, it was gone. So I was not used to this continuous ringing in my ears. And I was like, that's weird. Again, probably just aftermath of my cold and being stuffed up. So I'll see if I can see a doctor in Germany and see what they can say about it. So I had to wait 3 days to be able to see an ENT specialist in Germany. I'm not sure how their healthcare works, but I was able to see an ENT. It was like an on-call ENT on the weekend, so I had to wait a few days. So my host mom brought me in, and at this point I also couldn't hear. So my ears were blocked. It was a, what do you call it? A conductive hearing loss? Yeah, when there's like fluid or something blocking your hearing so you can't hear. But it's not like actual hearing damage. It's just something is like blocking your ears from being able to hear. So I went to this ENT. He looked in my ear, my left ear particularly, the one that was ringing, and he said, oh, it's filled with like fluid and mucus and gross, all this crap. So he prescribed me methylprednisone, which for those of you who don't know, it's a steroid, and steroids are immunosuppressants, so they suppress your immune system and basically try to decrease inflammation in your body when there's an immune response creating inflammation that could be causing a problem. So like for me, And for a lot of people, like, they get an inflammation in or around their ear, and it will cause ringing in their ears. But with the steroid, usually, if a lot of people take a steroid soon enough, if they take it, it will go away. So I took it, and it was like a 5-day course. It was super short. It was not that long. It was like a 5-day taper. And it also wasn't that strong of a course. It was like, I don't know, I forget, but it wasn't a like strong dose of steroids. It was kind of light. But anyways, I took them, and the hearing loss got better, which I think probably was just the fluid draining. I don't really think that was the steroid doing anything. I think that was just the natural process of fluid draining from my ear, which always happens after a cold. But the ringing continued, and not only that, it got worse. It spread to my head and my right ear. So at this point, it was everywhere. And I now know that it's called tinnitus. So it's ringing in your ears that never stops. So I actually ended up having to come home a few days early from the program that I was on because I had PTSD from my eye experience being alone in a foreign country, dealing with a new health problem. It's super scary especially when it's your senses, like your eyes and your ears. Like, it's really scary to be not with your family or not somewhere you're comfortable. So I was having a lot of PTSD from that experience. And I was calling my parents every day, like, freaking out, and I was just like, I need to go home. Like, I can't deal with this anxiety anymore. I need to go home. So I went home, and we ended up, it literally, like, it's scary how much it was a repeat, or it felt like a repeat of 3 years ago with my eyes. We went to so many ENTs, my GP, who originally they said that, you know, they still saw some inflammation, and that I had like a sinus infection still kind of brewing back there, which they gave me steroids for again, a very, very strong dose this time, and that only made the tinnitus get worse again. So I went to, my mom has been, you know, telling all this to her friends who have Lyme, and they kept saying, like, you know, she said all of these weird health issues throughout the years, all these weird rashes and tingling and brain fog and like anxiety attacks and depression and just all these weird things. You should go see another Lyme doctor because it really could be Lyme. So my parents, I think, were like, ugh, like, we don't think it is, but like, well, you know, like, we'll take you to another one to see. So I was taken to another Lyme doctor recommended by my mom's friend, and he did a blood test, and like I said, the tests are really unreliable. They're really not accurate because they're looking for your body's immune response to the bacteria and not the bacteria itself. So they can be right or they can be wrong. Like, it really doesn't matter. And this test was negative that I just got again. But the doctor said, I think it's wrong, and I think you have Lyme and possibly bartonella, which is a co-infection of Lyme. Based on my symptoms, he thought that they were very, like, what am I trying to say? They're very consistent with bartonella symptoms, and in bartonella patients he had seen before. So basically, I think I have Lyme and bartonella, and now I'm thinking that this could have been the cause of all my health issues the past few years. I'm currently being treated by this doctor who. Oh, has that been there the whole time? Oy vey. I'm currently being treated by him and seeing if it helps. I have, since this all started, gotten hearing aids. Maybe you can see them. You see a little wire? And it goes behind my ear. Like that. But since this whole fiasco with my ears has started, I've worn hearing aids that mask the sound most of the time. Sometimes it's super loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Like right now, it's like quiet. And a big trigger for me is stress. So if I'm like super stressed, my ears will be screaming. So I try to like stay calm and collected. But yeah, I think that's probably what I'm dealing with. And I'll update this channel with any like new answers I get. I also had hypothyroidism that showed on my blood test, which is an underactive thyroid, which can contribute to like depression, just like feeling of sluggishness, and can cause any sort of health problem. So I might have Hashimoto's, I might have Lyme, I might have bartonella. None of it's super confirmed yet, but based on my symptoms and the fact that I had a bullseye rash 3 years ago, it's kind of all adding up for me, and I think that's what I'm dealing with. So I've had to deal with a lot. Like I said, this is going to be a long video. It's already almost an hour long. Like, I've had to deal with so many weird health problems popping up here and there throughout the years. And, like, the number one thing I've learned through all of this is that you have to be your own advocate. I've had so many doctors tell me, like, you just need to see a psychologist or a psychiatrist because your symptoms are psychosomatic. Or like you don't see anything wrong with you. Like you're fine. Like if you don't feel fine, this is something I'm so passionate about. If you don't feel fine and you know something's wrong with you, intuitively, like your gut knows, like you know when something's wrong with you. Never stop fighting to find the right doctor and find somebody who will listen to you and who will treat you. It's imperative that you do that, or else, there might be something actually there that just goes unchecked for years and could get worse and worse down the line, which you don't want to happen. Obviously, if you have something wrong with you, you want to know so you can treat it and get started on dealing with it right away. So be your own health advocate. It is so important that you do that. Especially young women, I feel like, are especially pushed in that category where they're not really listened to. A lot of doctors think, oh, you're just anxious, you're just depressed, you're just, in the prime of your teenage or young adult life, and you're just wanting attention. Like, no, if you know something's wrong with you, never stop fighting to be addressed and to be heard. That's the biggest thing I've gotten out of all of this. And the second thing I wanted to say about all of these issues is that acceptance is something I've had to learn and try to incorporate into what I've experienced. First with my eye thing, at a certain point, I just stopped fighting it, and I knew that it wasn't going to heal anymore, so I had to accept that it was just that's the way I'm gonna see things now. It's gonna be different, but I can still live my life. And I'm still not over that process in terms of my ears. And, you know, maybe it will get better with Lyme treatment. Maybe that's like the cause of what's going on. But when you can't change something, then you have to accept it in order to move on with your life. If you can't accept something, then how are you going to like find peace within yourself and move on? I'm like preaching to the choir here, because this is something I'm saying it, but I also struggle with this so much. I'm also struggling so hard to accept that this might be my new normal with the ringing in my ears, and these devices help, but like I can't change it right now other than trying to go down the rabbit hole of possibly having Lyme and Hashimoto's disease. So there's nothing I can do to change it immediately other than going down these paths and seeing if anything sticks and anything helps. So I'm trying my best to not let it like stop me from living my life, but it's hard. And I know also it is the time of coronavirus, and that has made everything worse. It's made my anxiety worse. It's really tough. But that's what one of my favorite YouTubers who helped me through my first eye problem, Molly Burke. Please look her up. She's amazing. She's a blind YouTuber, and she's gotten so much fame ever since I first started watching her. So I'm so proud of her. She does amazing things and is such an advocate in the blind community. But like her motto, or like one of her like catchphrases is, if you can't change something, then you have to accept it in order to move on. And I think that's such an incremental part of life, not just like health and healing and finding healing within yourself, but just so many parts of life, you know? Relationships, jobs, work, things like that. If you can't change something, then you move on with your life, because what else do you do? What other option do you have? You survive, and you get through it. So yeah, this has been my almost an hour rant of introducing myself and my story. Please let me know in the comments below if you have experienced anything similar to what I've experienced. I will totally reach out to you. You're not alone. No, you're not alone. I've been through so much health issues. And yes, just wanted to put this out into the world. If this helps somebody, I know when I was, in the midst of feeling my worst, all I wanted was to listen to somebody my age who dealt with similar issues and could get through it. So, yeah. Thank you for watching my video. I will upload more as I learn more about myself, what works for me, maybe diets, maybe, I don't even know what this channel is going to be, like probably just like lifestyle, health, and we'll see what happens as I go along. But thanks for joining me, and see you guys next time. Bye!